I paid $9,200 toward my parents' anniversary party. Tent, flowers, full catering. A week later, my aunt sent a text. By the way, we're keeping the guest list tight. You're not included, my mom added. It's not personal. So, I made sure it wasn't. I canceled the tent rental, froze the catering funds, flagged the venue deposit. The morning of the party, my dad called 17 times. When I finally answered, I said, "This crossed every boundary. I mean, everyone." Over the years, my parents found new ways to treat me like a convenient button they could press when life broke down. A little handyman, tech support, and walking bank account, all wrapped up in one polite, well-meaning son. And I never made a scene, never pushed back. Even when I felt like I was being used, I just swallowed it, convinced myself they didn't realize how lopsided things were. But this time, this wasn't something you accidentally do to someone. I spent $9,200 on their anniversary. That's not pocket change. That's not a careless favor. That was careful planning, long nights comparing vendors, calling around for specialty items. And I did it because no one else would. My siblings went ghost. The second the idea of chipping in came up, my sister sent a text that said, money's tight right now. Mortgage and all. My brother said he'd see what he could do, which we all knew meant absolutely nothing. So I stepped in like always. I booked the tent, White High Peak, the one my mom had shown me in a Pinterest photo a year ago. I got a hold of a catering company that offered custom meal plans and agreed to accommodate my dad's annoying list of dietary preferences. I even hunted down a florist who could source blue orchids because he mentioned once in passing that they reminded him of his late grandmother. I took time off work to arrange meetings, negotiate prices, and send deposits. I didn't expect a medal. I just figured I'd be part of the celebration. 1 week before the event, I got a text from my aunt, just 10 words. "By the way, we're keeping the guest list tight. You're not included. No context, no explanation, just a gut punch out of nowhere." I stared at the screen like it was in another language. I honestly thought it was a mistake. I waited for a correction. Maybe a lol wrong person. But then my mom chimed in a few minutes later with something even worse. "It's not personal. We're just trying to keep it intimate. Hope you understand." And that line broke something in me. It's not personal. How many times had I heard that from them when they forgot to call on my birthday, when they invited my sister's boyfriend of 2 months on a family trip but didn't think I'd want to come, when they only remembered I existed if someone needed help with a tax return or their garage door opener stopped working. I didn't text back. I didn't ask for clarity. I opened my laptop and started making phone calls. Tent rental cancelable until 48 hours before the event. Gone. Catering. I paid through a service that offered dispute resolution and fund freezing. Paused. The venue deposit. I flagged the payment. Cited a major change in event terms. And the florist had already ordered, so I took the hit there. That was fine. I was done bleeding for people who didn't see me as anything but a tool. The morning of the party, my phone rang once 7 times. My dad, then my mom, then my aunt, then back to my dad again, over and over. Finally, on the 18th call, I picked up. He said, "Peter, what the hell happened?" I said. "It's not personal." Then I hung up. It was quiet after that. Dead quiet. I sat at home that night. No regrets, just clarity. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment move. This had been building for years. They thought they could keep treating me like a vending machine that also fixed toilets and showed up with blue orchids. Not anymore. I didn't expect gratitude. I didn't even expect an apology, but I thought maybe they'd at least reflect. Maybe they'd realize how insane it was to exclude the person who paid for the party. But no, of course not. They went silent. The day after the canceled party, nothing, no calls, no texts. Day 2, same thing. On the 3rd day, I saw it. My sister reposted a few photos someone else had taken, probably my cousin Amanda, the only one in the family who uses Instagram like a food blog. I clicked through them with a sort of detached curiosity. No tent, obviously. The backyard looked empty and exposed. They dragged out a few mismatched chairs from the garage. a folding table for snacks, and a cooler sitting on the grass. I recognized the flowers on the table, cheap carnations from the supermarket down the road, not even arranged, just stuffed into a glass pitcher like someone gave up halfway through. My dad stood in the background of one shot with his arms crossed, looking miserable. My mom posed for a photo with two of her sisters. Eyes puffy, makeup a little uneven, they still tried to smile, the caption said. A beautiful celebration for two beautiful people. I don't know what hit me harder, the awkward sadness of it all, or the fact that none of them had the decency to reach out and admit what they did. It wasn't until the 5th day that I got a text from my mom. Just 3 words. Can we talk? No explanation. No acknowledgement. Just that. I didn't reply. On the 6th day, my aunt took her turn. This one was longer. A wall of text that started with, "I don't usually get involved in drama," and ended with, "I hope one day you grow out of this selfish phase." Selfish, that was rich. I'd been covering things for them for years. You know how many birthdays I paid for, how many surprise gifts I helped organize for my siblings because my parents didn't know what to buy. I even paid off a $2,800 roof repair last fall when my dad casually mentioned it during dinner, then looked at me for 5 seconds too long. They had taken my support for granted for so long that the idea of not having it felt like betrayal to them. Then my sister called. That was the moment I knew they were starting to panic. She jumped in like she was doing PR damage control, said things got a little chaotic, planning the party that maybe they should have handled it differently. But I shouldn't have overreacted. According to her, I made everyone uncomfortable and humiliated our parents. That was her actual phrase. I asked her a simple question. If I hadn't frozen the funds, how many people do you think would have said thank you at the party? She didn't respond right away. Then she said something about how it was never about the money. That's when I knew they'd never get it. To them, I wasn't family. I was an employee they didn't have to pay. So I made a quiet decision. I was done showing up for the people who only called when they were overwhelmed or in over their heads, done offering help just to be erased from the moments that mattered, done being useful while they pretended I was optional. The next time their internet stopped working, let them call Comcast. When the garage door jammed, they could Google it. I wasn't the family handyman anymore. I wasn't the ATM. I was done being polite about being exploited. And I had a feeling they were going to find out what that actually meant. 2 weeks of silence that had never happened before. Not with my family, usually after a fight, or some passive-aggressive cold shoulder from one of them I'd cave. I'd call, apologize, without saying the word, help them with whatever they were hinting at, and pretend nothing happened. That's how things worked in my family. Sweep it under the rug and keep moving. But this time I didn't move. I stayed still and watched. And it didn't take long for things to fall apart. The first crack came in the form of a text from my brother. Yo, not sure if you heard, but Mom's kitchen sink is acting up. Water everywhere like it was a casual update, like maybe I'd want to drive 2 hours on a Saturday and get under their sink with a wrench. I ignored it. A day later, my mom reached out. Hi, Peter. The kitchen sink's leaking again. Not a big deal. But if you have a moment? I stared at it for a while before responding. Then I sent 4 words. Call a plumber. Good luck. A couple more days went by. Then came a photo from my dad. Mold forming under the sink. The kind that spreads fast. He didn't say anything else. Just sent a photo like I'd see it. And spring into action. I didn't. Instead, I sat on my couch and watched a movie. I ordered takeout. I even started sketching plans for a small bookshelf I'd wanted to build. For the first time in a long time, my evening was mine. That's when it started snowballing. The garage door stopped working. The printer wouldn't connect to Wi-Fi. Their microwave made a strange sound. Every 2 or 3 days I'd get a new text. Do you know anything about this? Or still have that tool you used on our gutters? They never said sorry. Never said they were wrong. Just assumed I'd pick up where I left off. And I didn't. Not once. Funny thing. My life got better. I had more time. More energy. I picked up woodworking. I joined a gym. I stopped waiting for my phone to light up, with some minor family emergency disguised as a catching up call. Then one night, around 10:00, I got a voicemail from my mom. Her voice was overly calm, which meant she was trying to hide irritation under something soft. She said they hadn't heard from me and were worried that maybe we've let things go on long enough. Then she said, "We miss you. It's time to move past all that drama. You know you're part of this family." I played it back twice. They miss me now that the unpaid labor had stopped, now that the things I used to fix without question were starting to pile up. It wasn't about me. It was about the void I left. They didn't miss me. They missed the free handyman, the problem solver, the wallet, the one who never said no. But now I was saying no with silence, with boundaries, with space they didn't know how to fill. And I wasn't done yet. About a week after the voicemail, I still hadn't responded. Not a word. And just like that, everything went quiet again. I thought maybe they backed off, maybe started processing what happened. But no, that's not how they work. They don't reflect, they calculate. That's when I got the email from my dad. Subject line, "We need to talk." He never emailed. He barely used his phone except to Google things like how to tell if a potato is bad. I opened it out of pure curiosity. It was short, formal, like he was talking to a stranger, said they were in the middle of making some updates to the estate planning documents and thought it would be a good idea to have a conversation beforehand. That was the whole email. One vague attempt to draw me back in with the unspoken implication of inheritance, like I'd trip over myself to rejoin the family if money was suddenly mentioned. I deleted it without replying. That same night, Amanda, my cousin, messaged me out of nowhere. She said she'd been meaning to ask something but didn't know if it was appropriate. Apparently, my sister had been telling people I bailed on the anniversary at the last minute, that I'd been going through something, and that they were worried about my mental health. She even told Amanda that I'd never actually pay for anything, just offered to and then ghosted. I just stared at the screen. That was the story they were spreading, so I did what I never usually do. I answered with facts. I sent Amanda a few screenshots. The paid invoices for the catering and tent, the florist's order, the messages where I was cut out of the party, my mom's line. "It's not personal?" Amanda responded. "What the hell? I had no idea." They made it sound like you were unstable. Unstable. That word stuck with me longer than I thought it would. After all the years I fixed their problems, covered for their laziness, showed up when no one else would. This was the narrative they pushed the second I said no. And suddenly, it wasn't just about them excluding me from a party. It was about how easily they tried to bury me when I stopped playing the part. So I didn't just sit with it, I acted. I created a group chat, added my parents, both siblings, 2 cousins, and one uncle who always liked to stay neutral. I sent a message that simply said, "Since there's been some confusion," I figured it was time to share the full picture. Then I attached the receipts, the text messages, the timeline. I didn't say another word. Then I turned off my phone and went out for a walk. 2 days later, I turned it back on. My inbox was burning. Missed calls from my dad, 4 voicemails from my mom, a series of angry on from my sister that went from denial to rage to guilt, or voice messages. In about 30 messages, even my aunt texted me, "Was it really necessary to humiliate everyone like that?" Not one apology, just anger that they'd been exposed. I took a long look at every message. Then I got to work. First, I logged into the tax software I'd been using to file for them every year for free, removed all their profiles, deleted stored documents, disabled autofill. Then I called the HVAC company I'd been paying for to cover their yearly maintenance. The system I'd set up as a favor 2 years ago when they had a furnace issue, canceled the plan, told them if my parents wanted coverage they'd have to start fresh under their own name. Then I opened my budget planner. I'd been giving them small amounts here and there for years. Groceries, bills, emergencies that weren't actually emergencies, all of it automatic. I shut it all off, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt like I could breathe, like I had reclaimed something I hadn't even realized I lost. It wasn't revenge. It was release, and they hadn't even hit the final wall yet. By week 4, the silence coming from them didn't feel like retreat. It felt like strategy. They were regrouping. I'd seen this pattern too many times. They weren't going to apologize. They were going to wait for the heat to die down and try again, but with a different approach. They'd always treated my kindness like a currency they didn't have to earn. They never expected the supply to run out. That changed fast. My dad cracked first. He called on a Tuesday evening. No voicemail, just a call. Then he sent a message, 10 minutes later. "Can we meet? Just talk. No games." I didn't respond. The next day, a handwritten letter showed up at my place. I recognized the slanted all-caps handwriting on the envelope. Inside, 2 pages of the closest thing to an apology I'd ever gotten from him. He didn't admit to much. Said he regretted how things unfolded and wished I hadn't felt excluded, but there it was. Regret. The most I'd ever gotten from a man who once grounded me for having a tone when I was 12. I almost gave in. I almost called. Then I got a call from my friend Drew, the one who used to live next to my parents. He said my dad had been complaining to neighbors, telling them I'd abandoned the family over a tent rental, and that I was letting money change me. So that letter, that wasn't regret. That was cleanup. They weren't sorry. They were just embarrassed. That weekend, I got an invite to a small family dinner at their house. No explanation, no acknowledgement of anything, just the dinner like they could fast forward past the part where they cut me out, blamed me for the fallout, and rewrote the entire story behind my back. I declined politely. 3 hours later, my sister called me from my parents' house. I let it go to voicemail. She sounded exhausted. Said they were ready to put everything behind us, that they were willing to forgive how I handled things. Forgive me. That's when I knew they hadn't learned anything. So I called back the next morning. My dad answered. He asked if I was coming to the next family event, some cookout they were planning. Said it would mean a lot to my mom if I showed up. I told him I wasn't coming. He asked why. So I told him, because I don't forgive you, any of you. And I don't want to be around people who only remember I exist when they need something. He didn't speak right away, just this long pause. Then, so, that's it, I said. Yeah, at least for the near future. Then I hung up. No yelling, no drama, just the truth. And for once they had to sit with it. I didn't slam the door. I just closed it, locked it from my side, and I had no plans to open it again anytime soon. It took them a while to understand I wasn't bluffing. A few weeks passed, then a month. No calls, no texts. I think they thought silence would punish me, that I'd get lonely and come crawling back, ready to forgive them, pretend none of it happened. But silence didn't punish me, it freed me. I started living differently, more intentionally. I took a trip by myself to Oregon, rented a cabin, hiked every morning, cooked my own meals, didn't look at my phone for entire stretches of the day. I made something with my hands every week. Bookshelves, a little coffee table, even a wooden stand for my record player. I started to remember who I was when I wasn't busy managing their mess. It was around the start of fall when I heard from them again. My mom sent a message, long, carefully worded. She said they'd been thinking a lot about how things went, that they realized they treated me unfairly. She didn't mention the party. She didn't mention the lies they spread. Just a vague, roundabout apology, without real weight. At the end, she wrote, "We'd like to apologize. We miss you. We'd really like to reconnect." I didn't respond right away. 2 days later, my dad called. This time, he left a voicemail that was less defensive than before. He said they wanted to make things right, that they should have handled things better. I could hear it in his voice. The part of him that was used to winning, to being right, was tired. They'd hit the limit of pretending I'd come back if they just ignored what happened long enough. I finally agreed to meet. We sat outside at a quiet diner halfway between our towns, neutral ground. My dad tried to start light, asked how work was going, made a weak joke about the weather. My mom looked tired but hopeful. Then she said it. "We're really sorry, Peter, for everything. We know we messed up. I didn't say anything right away. I let it hang there, then I said thank you. I needed to hear that. But I'm not ready to come back. And to be honest, I don't know when I will be. My mom blinked like she didn't hear me right. My dad leaned back. For the first time, it felt like they were truly listening. I told them I didn't hold hate, but I also didn't forget. I told them that people who claim to love you don't cut you out of their lives and then ask for your money, that I spent too long believing their love was conditional, and that now I was making sure mine wasn't taken for granted. I paid for my coffee, stood up, and as I left I told them, this isn't goodbye, but it's not a return either, and that's where it stands. No final blowout, no movie-ending hug, just a clean, cold line between the past and whatever comes next. They may have finally learned their lesson, but this time the decision to rebuild, that's mine. Months passed. I didn't expect peace, but that's what I got. Not perfect, not total, just a quiet, settled kind of distance. I stayed in my rhythm. Work, wood projects, solo road trips, silence from my family, a kind of normal. Then something happened I didn't expect. I got a letter. Not an email, not a voicemail, a real envelope with handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was a small card and a note from Amanda, my cousin, the only one who'd ever checked in without an angle. She said she wanted to tell me something in person if I had time. Just coffee. She said it wasn't family drama, her words, and that she understood if I wasn't interested, I agreed, mostly out of curiosity. We met at a small coffee shop in town. She looked nervous, which was strange for her. She didn't waste time. Your mom's been going to therapy. For real. I didn't say anything, she continued. Apparently, after I walked away, things started unraveling more than I thought. My sister stopped coming around. My dad got quieter. Some extended family called them out privately after reading the receipts I'd sent. No drama, just quiet distancing, but the real shift came. Amanda said, when my mom tried to plan Thanksgiving and no one volunteered to help, my dad told her, we're not doing that again. That's when she apparently broke down and admitted what she'd done, not just to me, but for years. Amanda said my mom's therapist encouraged her to write a real apology, but she hadn't sent it yet. She was too scared I wouldn't care, or worse, that I'd ignore it. I told Amanda I didn't need an apology on paper. I needed proof that the cycle was broken. Then came the second surprise. Amanda handed me a folded sheet of paper. From your dad, she said. I opened it. One sentence. I'm trying to learn how to be a dad. That was it. No signature, no explanation. Just that. And somehow, that hit harder than all the apologies they'd dodged for years. I didn't decide anything right away. I went home, sat with it, stared at the note for a long time. 2 weeks later, I drove past my parents' house. I didn't stop. I didn't go in. I just parked down the street and watched for a few minutes. Lights were on, TV flickering through the window. Normal life. But something felt different. Not better, just quieter. That night I sat down and wrote a letter. Not a reply, just a message. You don't need to apologize again. What you do from here matters more. I'm not ready to come back, but I'm open to something new, something slower, something real. If that's what you want too, then we'll see. I didn't sign it with love. I just signed it, Peter. And I mailed it the next morning. I don't know if there's a perfect ending to this kind of story. Families don't really resolve like TV shows with hugs and music and a dinner scene at the end. Sometimes people change. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just get quiet enough to start listening. All I know is I stopped begging for the bare minimum. I stopped giving away pieces of myself in exchange for crumbs of connection. I stopped showing up just to be erased. And for once, they finally had to meet me where I was, not drag me back to where they were comfortable. So maybe this is the beginning of something different. Or maybe it's just closure. Either way, I'm good.